An amazing journey with a doomed friendship and a philosophical debate. Let's talk about it. I feel like calling this movie a bottle movie might not be right, but it's also incredibly accurate. Like, for the uninitiated, a bottle movie or a bottle episode, anything, is typically when either an episode or a movie takes place in a single night or in a single location or with a single character. It's a very contained thing. And this kind of feels in that vein. Now, there's no world-ending threat. There's only these young men and a walk. But let's start from the beginning. In dystopian America, it seems like there's only really one way to move up in the world, and that's to volunteer for this contest, a test of endurance, if you will. The rules are very simple. Walk at a speed of 3 miles an hour minimum. You go below that, you get a warning. 3 warnings, and your ticket gets punched. Last man standing wins a wish and a cash prize. Ray is our first protagonist as a young man who wins the lottery to be added to the walk, and well, all the boys are lottery wins. As a matter of fact, they've never known anyone who didn't apply to try and win. And as they're all sitting down, that's when my first cold crack of being an old man comes up. These boys are just that. They're kids sent to the slaughter. There's a deeper meaning there that we're going to get back to later on, but these boys start to talk and become friends. They speak of how envious they are of Ray, the fact that they're in his home state at the beginning of the contest, that he might get to see his loved ones. And from there, we're off to the walk, and we quickly have our first 2 victims. Curly Adams, you may know him from Jojo Rabbit, is a kid who doesn't look a day over 16, develops a Charlie horse, and is unceremoniously put down in a shockingly graphic manner that really sets the tone for this film. And also, that's when we get the title sequence, 20 minutes in, and that's when we finally see it. And as well, we follow the boys on what is effectively a death march, where there can only be one winner. But Curly's death is also the first flash of humanity when I see that it's still there in these kids as they're trying to encourage Curly to keep going, but he just can't. And even though they're all trying to help him, even though him living makes their lives a little harder, they don't want him to die. It's a morality. Brockovich alienates himself from the rest of the group when he baits another kid into swinging at him. That kid gets DQ'd and gets put down. The first night is tough, with some of the boys beginning to collapse from a lack of sleep or exhaustion, as well as the incline, but Pete saves Ray's life on multiple occasions. And as we continue, we get to know each character, but it's very clear that the core of this film will be the friendship between Ray and Pete, played by Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson, respectively. Also, David Johnson should be the next Blade, just saying. We also have Art and Hank, who become the 4 Musketeers. They support one another as long as they can during the walk. And this is when we get an idea of what the kids' wishes will be. From Pete wanting to make the world a better place, to Art wanting, I think, an elephant, if I remember correctly, to Hank wanting 10 naked ladies. And it's almost, again, it's a heartbreaking reminder that these are just, they're kids. Like, I'm not trying to be cynical, but, like, I think I'm an old man, and these wishes scream youth. It's eventually revealed that Ray's wish will be for a carbine so that he can put down the Major. It's eventually revealed that Ray's father, who he idolizes, showed Ray some forbidden things, some books or music that isn't exactly government approved, and was given a choice. Either renounce it in front of his family or die. And he chooses death. And on some level, oh man, it's kind of a toss-up, and Pete calls out his dad on it. Pete says it was selfish for Ray's father to die, to leave his wife and his son out in the world like that, being by themselves. But on another level, I understand Ray's father not wanting to renounce things and be courageous in front of his son, and telling him to be unique and continue on, to be an example, even in the face of death. There's so much more to this philosophical film than you can ever realize. Pete tells Ray that he's wrong for wanting to win, just to die for nothing, while Ray tells Pete it's worth taking out the Major and maybe sparking larger change. And as we continue, we lose more and more of these kids. We can then zero in on the deaths of Hank and Brockovich, the guy that was alienated. Hank eventually goes mad and rushes the soldiers, but is shot and left to bleed out. He's shot in the gut and slowly dies as a form of discouragement from the other kids from doing a run of the Light Brigade. It's eventually revealed that he actually had a wife, and everyone agrees to help her in some way. In return, Brockovich, who is clearly mentally unwell, apologizes for everything he's done for his actions earlier in the film, and he then offs himself in a brutal fashion. It's from there we're down to 5. While walking through Freeport, Ray's mother sees him, and Ray breaks down in front of her and apologizes to her, but it seems like he's about to be put down in front of her. Pete grabs him and saves him at the last possible minute, telling him, Do not do that, not in front of your mother. And in this film, that's probably the most emotional any parent's going to get. It's at this point that Pete reveals his tragic upbringing, the loss of his parents, the abuse of his uncle, his need to steal and fight to stay alive, and why his outlook on life must remain positive. It's not easy to always look on the brighter side of things, but it's how he's been able to get on. And not since Wayman has I think we've had a character so pure of heart. By this point, the boys have all agreed to stop helping each other, and Ray tells Pete, "You can't keep saving me." Colin Parker, a Native American who is defiant as ever, rushes some of the soldiers, gets a rifle, takes some of them out before going out on his own terms. Honestly, I respect that. While Art starts to bleed internally, and man, this is the death that got me the hardest. Pete and Ray tell him he had a good run, while Art says he just wants to go home. He gives Ray his rosary and he asks them to not watch while his life comes to an end. And it's just, that part is just heartbreaking. He wants to go home. He misses his grandfather. It's just, I don't know, man. He might have the most tragic death here. Maybe that's just me. And then there were three, with Stebbins, Ray, and Pete, and it's here where the book and the movie differ. Stebbins reveals that he's the major son, but he still collapses and goes out defiant, while Ray and Pete continue on. Pete, who had told Ray earlier he just planned on sitting down when he was done walking, sits down, but Ray drags him back up and asks him to walk with him just a little bit longer. But it's at that point that Ray stops so Pete can win. And here it is. Ray is put down and Pete wins, and he's horrified with the fireworks going on around him. He's why are they celebrating? They just took my best friend. And it's here that Pete asks his wish for a carbine rifle, fulfilling Ray's wishes and putting down the major. Now, this is where I seem to see a divide among multiple people in my life. Nikki told me that she didn't like the ending because it was Pete just throwing away his life, while Chema stated he feels like this is Pete losing his humanity, giving in, and that it's a tragic ending. And honestly, I get it, but I think they're both wrong. I think this ending is Pete realizing that this is a broken world, and someone or something needs to spark change. Every revolution starts with a single bullet. While it's nice to try and look at the bright side of life, the reality is that in their world, the system is very much broken, and it would be nice to be a pacifist and shirk their responsibility because you're taken care of, but that's not the world that they live in. Pete takes it upon himself to end the man who has destroyed countless families. The film ends with Pete walking away, and it's left to the viewer to kind of guess, is Pete just walking? Was he killed? Or what happened? If I have one edit to this film, I kind of wish that they had shown Pete walking, and from one light pole to another, we see his friends walking with him and talking, so that we have a clear message. He's in the afterlife now. He did something, though, and maybe something's going to change. Anyway, I think this film is brilliant. This book is brilliant, and this movie it's an allegory, in case you didn't know, for the Vietnam War. Something that Stephen King used as an outline. Kids being sent out to die in a needless and unnecessary war. Each kid arguably represents an archetype of a soldier, even Brockovich, a stupid kid that needed mental help, but instead he was left to his own devices. This story is tragic, but it's also so very layered with philosophical questions. It might be my favorite adaptation of any Stephen King novel, maybe ever. The dialogue choices are stellar, and the acting is amazing. They make us want to root for all these kids, all these doomed children. There's no smoke and mirrors, there's no CGI to hide behind. It's pure acting, and it's amazing. For me, at least. The film's an 8 out of 10. Definitely rewatchable. But what did you think of The Long Walk? It's out on VOD now. We also have an audio review that's going out. Let us know what you think. And yeah, catch y'all later. See you, everyone.